That was when the light bulb started to kind of turn on for me of, wow, this is an incredible missed opportunity.
That's Fynn Glover. After selling his first startup, he realized that software companies were leaving millions of dollars on the table.
If your pricing and packaging is not evolving with your product, you're just undercapitalized the business in so many ways.
After talking with hundreds of CTOs, he realized there was a simple solution.
What would happen if they had the tools to be iterative on pricing and to treat pricing like product?
And now he's raised $5 million to help companies grow faster.
This is how change it would take that type of company a quarter or two prior to Schematic.
All while hitting the market just as AI is introducing pricing complexities for every company.
So why haven't people solved it? I think because they haven't had to until now.
But Schematic is Fynn's second go at building a startup.
About a year after college, I founded my first company, and I ran it for the next 10 years.
He'd been inspired by Shopify's Toby Lütke after having not known the word entrepreneurship until near the end of college.
There was a Toby who said that entrepreneurship is the purest form of self-expression. That feels like the real draw to me.
He managed to sell the business after growing it to $2 million in ARR after a long and winding journey.
I was a first-time founder and I was very mission-driven, but I had so little business acumen and so little business skill that we were all over the place. The exit that we achieved was really hard won, and it was a slog.
But the reason it was a challenge might not be what you'd expect.
One of the biggest mistakes that I had made was pricing and packaging. I had just really not understood willingness to pay and how crucial that is to pricing power and leverage within a company.
And while he was figuring out what to do next, a friend who was building a fast-scaling cybersecurity company, Automox, recruited him to lead growth.
The business, like many businesses, had grown quickly and achieved great product market fit, but it hadn't touched pricing in 2 years. And during that time, what had happened? Well, of course, the product had matured by the market had matured a bit. The competition was stiffer. But the product itself, in my opinion, was obviously orders of magnitude better than it was 2 years before. And we were leaving so much money on the table.
With the business growing well through customer acquisition and retention, Fynn turned his attention to pricing.
Brought the executive team together and we ran willingness to pay studies and we really understood sensitivity analysis and we really understood elasticity and we did the analysis and we came up with the proposal and we thought we were going to go unleash this change that would drive millions of dollars in incremental ARR into the business.
Everyone was bought into Fynn's plan and excited about it. But months went by and nothing happened.
And then suddenly it all ground to a halt. And for the next 6 months, I begged engineering to give me the resources to go implement and action the changes that we were trying to bring to the business, to finally get the executive team aligned around changes we were proposing that we had a high degree of confidence could drive 20% in incremental ARR. To have all of that work and then be basically turned off was deeply, deeply frustrating.
Startups are designed to grow fast. Paul Graham even says it's a defining characteristic of a startup. So why would nothing happen with an initiative that would drive millions in faster growth that the whole team was already excited about?
That was when the light bulb started to kind of turn on for me of, wow, this is an incredible missed opportunity. If you thought about the simple revenue equation for any business, it is price times quantity. Price is 50% of the revenue equation. But I bet you if you ask most founders, they spend 99% of the time thinking on quantity. What would happen if they spent 5% of their time thinking about price, the other half of the revenue equation?
What he found was that the business model's pricing logic had been deeply embedded into the product's code base from day one, and no one wanted to invest the time in changing such a foundational piece of logic rather than shipping new features.
And I got very bullish on this after talking to a lot of different CTOs and hearing them say, why should my application have to care about all this billing logic? In fact, that's like an anti-pattern and it destroys so much of my, the business agility and occupies so much of my team's time. And it was the root of an enormous amount of commercial and technical debt. It was very, very hard for us to unwind and crippled the business's agility in concert. And the fact that I have to ask engineering to accept this terrible trade-off between shipping new value and supporting pricing and packaging evolution feels like a really bad trade.
Fynn had realized something crucial. The company was operating like a startup in every way except for its pricing model.
This business that is supposed to be out competing these huge incumbents on speed and pace, can't actually change the way it monetizes its offerings. It can't align its product roadmap.
He thought that if this problem existed at his company, it probably existed at others too. And maybe it was common enough to be limiting the growth of countless other companies to the degree where they were also leaving millions on the table.
From there, it was like, well, am I right or am I wrong? And I went and interviewed a lot of different people and companies to try to understand the extent to which the initial observation was correct. Was all this complexity coming from that hard coding of pricing, or was that atypical? So that kicked off a lot of discovery as to why that was so complex. And what I found was it wasn't that we didn't have adequate billing tools. It wasn't that we didn't have adequate quoting tools. It was that architecturally we were hard coding pricing and packaging into our application.
When Fynn first told me about this problem, I was surprised it was so common. I asked him why more companies don't plan ahead for it.
And because it emerges over time, it is susceptible to, well, let's just do the quickest and dirtiest thing to make what we got to do tomorrow work. And that's what leads to these decisions like hard coding plan and billing logic in the application and tying it tightly to a plan ID in the billing system, creating this basically it's the beginning moment of commercial and technical debt that will do nothing but spiral from there as you launch new features, add more product, introduce exceptions, try to support trials and enterprise plans. It just spiral.
It makes sense. And the increasing complexity that Fynn's talking about is only becoming more and more of a problem now with the rise of AI.
For the last 25 years, B2B SaaS pricing and packaging has been quite boring. Traditional B2B SaaS has been like seat-based static pricing for much of the last 2 decades. And I think in the last 2 years, especially, we've seen that just fundamentally get disrupted because of AI. And what AI is doing is it's forcing us from selling these, products that have, what I would call like very predictably high gross margins, to selling these products with less predictably high gross margins. And that forces you into consumption pricing. And consumption pricing comes in many different flavors. And really the main flavor it comes in is hybrid. It's some combination of seats and credits and usage. And that combination, that combinatorial potential creates so many permutations, and it's the permutational sprawl that starts to add up and build a ton of complexity on typically product and engineering. You figure out how to manage.
If you didn't take combinatorics in college, don't worry. What Fynn's showing is that the sheer number of potential customer pathways in terms of how they use your product and therefore how you will need to charge them is getting more complicated. And as a result, companies will be increasingly willing to pay for something else to solve that problem for them. Historically, companies have thrown bodies at this problem to solve it.
I think the way people are solving this problem is almost always homegrown. And I don't think people have a pattern for how to do this well in a way that is scalable. I remember MailChimp telling me they had a 20-person team, all engineers. They call it the billing engineering team. And there's so many companies like this. It doesn't make sense to me that like the average B2B startup has to employ a billing engineering team to monetize its product iteratively.
And Fynn's right that with the increasing complexity, it's just no longer feasible. The size of the team needed to solve the problem wouldn't be sustainable, even for large companies. So when Fynn realized that, he doubled down and started solving it by building Schematic. It lets developers add a few lines of code and some feature flags rather than re-architecting how pricing interacts with their entire code base, to then give non-technical team members the ability to change pricing on the fly via a simple no-code dashboard.
What we really started to conclude is it is the business user who is typically in product who needs to be able to control how monetization works. They should have all of the control. And if they have to, if anything they want to do requires code changes, that vision is not at you. We had a customer the other day who went from a traditional metered model to a new cred-based burn down model. And they've added 90 new subscriptions in a week. And they made the change, it was like somehow. This is the type of change that would take that type of company a quarter or two prior Schematic.
And Schematic really is simple. I played around with it and was able to figure it out in minutes. Critically, there's no solution out there like it today. What Stripe did for billing, Schematic is doing for entitlements.
Stripe is an amazing billing platform. We built our entire product on top of Stripe billing, but Stripe doesn't solve the entitlements and fulfillment problem, and we do.
I asked Fynn what's different this time as a second-time founder and why he's been able to raise $5 million and generate tons of interest in Silicon Valley.
My commercial instincts are sharper. I also feel like maybe my discipline around committing to one thing is stronger. And I say that because the problem that we have signed up to solve with Schematic is a deep infrastructural, difficult problem for enterprises. And it requires that we spend a lot of time and money in the first couple of years pouring the concrete.
And those instincts are shaping how he sees the market evolving.
So I think where the world is headed is high growth, scaling companies have to support more complexity from a pricing, packaging, growth perspective than they've had to in the past. I hope Schematic helps people look at pricing and packaging as a lever of growth more than they have in the past.